Okay, I believe we are there. So I believe. Whether it's true or not, we shall soon see, but I believe we are there. So just holding down the home front as always, dealing with affection starved dogs, or at least you'd think they were from the way they act, and affection starved cats who genuinely have a complaint because I've moved all my computer stuff upstairs so I can keep an eye on the dogs so they don't fight. Although they haven't been fighting, but I mean, you never know. I trust the cats who are essentially brothers more than I trust the dogs. Let's put it that way. So I've moved everything up here. Anyway, before we get too far into this, I will just mention, and so I don't want anybody like kind of going like, hang on a second, has he got like a scar, a new scar? And in fact, I rather do, whoops, except it's not new, it's not old enough yet to be a scar because I just did it like half an hour ago. I had one of our young people was here, and I was downstairs trying to find something that was wanted, and as I was taking things down, a large box fell off one of the higher shelves of the closet and hit me right in the face. So it has just stopped bleeding, which is a good thing. And God knows I have had enough scars on my face and head that in and of itself doesn't bother me at all. And I'm only even mentioning it because I don't want people going and being distracted while I am showering you with my golden words, if that makes sense. Anyway, so yes, I do have, oops, wrong side. I do have a hole in my upper lip, small one. It's just going to be another discrete little line on my already lined face. So no worries there. But anyway, other than that, let me think. What else has been going on? I pretty much finished the copy-edited manuscript of Splintered Sun, so I'm going to be sending that off either tonight or tomorrow morning. And is there anything else that's interesting to talk about? No, I'm here. I'm here with the dogs who will appear periodically during the program and bump my elbows and looking for attention as Johnny is doing right now. But they're getting used to this now, this thing where I sit here and talk and they don't know why or who I'm talking to, but it seems okay now. It's not the worrisome thing it was the first night I did it, where Lemon was literally trying to climb into my lap to find out why I had lost my mind this way and what it betokened for the future of the household dogs. And I kept trying to tell them it doesn't betoken anything. It's just me doing something upstairs that I usually do downstairs. But my dog's grasp of English is limited, so I don't know if they actually got that point. Anyway, what else is there to talk about? I don't know. I really don't know. So there's not much because, as I said, I've mostly just been hanging in here, staying out of trouble, keeping the dogs out of trouble, making sure everybody gets fed, dealing with medical appointments and other boring crap, and working on my manuscript. So I'm even less interesting than I usually am after the last few weeks. Because I can only leave the dogs when there's someone else here with them, because we haven't gotten to the point yet of getting them like our previous set of dogs, including Johnny was before, where they would all go in the bedroom together and they'd be fine. We haven't worked that out yet with Lemon and Johnny. I don't want to just try it randomly and hope for the best. So if I need to go out somewhere, I have to have somebody here with me to stay with the dogs. So as a result, I have largely been housebound and a little cabin fevery, just a tiny bit, but nothing to really complain about. So anyway, let me check and see if anybody has dropped in, and if they have dropped a comment or anything like that. And of course, as soon as I try to go look, the comments disappear. Let me see. Okay, here we go. All right, so Isaac has checked in. Isaac Tim, hello, good to see you. Medardo, mi amigo mexicano. Good to see you. Lovely to have you with us as always. Emily Bell, hello, hello. Good to see you. Tracy McClatchy, greetings back. Mr. Mark Craigbaum, another fine shirt. Nice. Thank you. Claudia, hello, hello. Good to have you too. Christy Sanders, a pleasure as always. Naomi this is Isaac's wife. Naomi wanted to ask, are there 3 Bobby Dollar books because Dante's Divine Comedy also has 3 books? It crossed my mind, but I can't say I adjusted it that way or that I purposely did it in that way. It's kind of how it goes. You know, most of my stories tend to have beginning, middle, and end. And then it's only a question of how long those individual bits are and whether I have miscalculated so badly that I have to add a 4th volume, which unfortunately has happened more often than not. So anyway, so not intentionally so, but you know, I have actually, well, obviously I've read the Inferno, but I've actually read the Paradiso. And have I read the Purgatorio? I don't remember. I certainly should have, because that's probably more interesting than the Paradiso. And my prejudice against eternal paradise, I think, comes through in the Bobby Dollar books. I cannot understand, if you were not in some way kind of dopey, how an eternity being happy all the time would feel. Doesn't feel like it would be much fun to me, but what do I know? You know, I come from a non-religious family, so don't take my word for anything. Who else is here? John D. Treadway. Howdy, howdy to you, John, and nice to have you with us. Penny Davies, hello. Mark Marino, good to see you. Happy Easter to everybody. Yes, of course, happy Easter to all those who celebrate. I had thought about it because I said something about it last night, but today has been such a blinding, confusing, busy day that none of it had reoccurred to me. So anyway, and Jim Laubacher's here. Hello, Jim. Good to see you. Kristen Rule and Tim Speckens. Almost all my favorite people, at least for this Sunday night episode, are here, and that is a good thing, a very good thing. So anyway, because I don't think we're going to finish tonight, but we might, I am going to go ahead and just start reading now instead of spending my usual time going off onto tangents. Because we might be able to finish tonight, and I will kind of have to figure that out as we go. So we will see what we will see. Anyway, so last episode, we heard the final confrontation with Anaita, and of course they were wildly overpowered by Anaita, but through a variety of sleight of hand or sleight of glove and various other things, sleight of horn also, they managed to trick Anaita into talking about what she had done and what she was going to do while they had a mecha cube, a device that can transmit and receive through the holy ether. And they had opened it up. Instead of it being directed only to Anaita, it was directed to heaven. And so all of a sudden, just when everything was at its lowest ebb, the angels showed up. So let me just continue. Actually, let me go back one half a paragraph or something. Yes. Then the room was full of moving lights, of whispering, half-visible wings and beautiful, glowing shadows. I heard Anaita shriek, and then I heard that shriek get smaller and smaller. I turned. Where she had been, a dark, unreflecting shape, like a huge, dark, what does that say? Why can't I get that? There we go. An unreflecting shape, like a huge, dark gem, now stood. A prison, I supposed. A casket, I really, really hoped. The entire room was swirling, becoming unstable. There was so much light. I could barely see to crawl through the blinding, directionless glare to the spot where Sam had fallen. He lay curled on his side in the splintered wreckage of the wall. The arm that had worn the god glove was gone, only a blackened stump left below his shoulder. He was bleeding from a dozen wounds, red streaming out onto the floor. I see the cavalry showed up, he said, but he was forcing air through his lips by sheer effort of will. You'll get help, Sam. You're an angel. You're tough. Hang in there. Oh, yeah. All the king's horses. He coughed blood. Why did you do it? Why did you use the glove? You said yourself that she could control it. Because even with Walker's trick and the other stuff, she wasn't confused enough. We couldn't risk it going wrong. He twitched, then shivered all over, but without much strength. But Sam,
Heaven, he stopped to cough, was never going to let me back in. One way or another, I was gone.
I could barely understand him. I'm pretty sure his jaw was broken. Clarence and Kaz staggered up. She dropped down to my side. I could feel her, smell her, but she was carrying a handful of snow from outside and wasn't paying any attention to me. She squeezed it over Sam's mouth, trickling water onto his tongue. He tried to smile.
Come on, B.
His voice was very faint.
A last drink without a proper toast? I don't think there's any booze here,
I said. I don't even know why I said it.
Why ruin 14 days of sobriety?
He grinned. Damn, he was strong. There was blood between his teeth and red bubbles forming in the corners of his mouth.
Water's fine. Just fine. Sam, shut up. I've been grooming the kid to keep an eye on you.
Clarence didn't say a thing. He was crying. You don't see angels cry much. I couldn't see so clearly either.
Sam?
He lifted a hand, struggled for a few seconds before he could finally form a word.
Confusion.
The hand fell back.
To our enemies,
I finished, but Sam wasn't listening anymore. Chapter 46, Bobby's Blessings. I can't really tell you what happened next. Well, not much of it anyway. I remember Kaz wrapping her arms around me. I remember turning to put my face against her neck because losing Sam hurt so much that I didn't know what else to do. Just as the fact struck me that she was actually there. Kaz, herself, the woman that I loved enough to go to hell for, we were surrounded by astonishingly bright light. I couldn't hear anything but the beating of wings and something that I swear to Jiminy Cricket was the sound of the world's biggest, most spiritually committed choir. Then everything flew up into the air, or at least I did. Kaz was still there, sort of, but we were both fractured, flying apart, breaking up like light shattered by a prism. And then nothing. I woke up in my apartment. Not Kaz's apartment, mine. The one I'd moved out of because of the infestation of swastika-shaped occult creatures, among other reasons. That apartment. I had about 3 seconds after consciousness rolled in when I could lie there and tell myself that none of it had happened, that Sam was still alive and Kaz hadn't been snatched out of my arms yet again. I wanted to believe it. God, how I wanted to. But although I was in bed, I was fully dressed except for shoes and yet not even slightly hungover. Something was definitely out of whack. I jumped up and ran out of the apartment, then down to the street, stepping on sharp things I could feel through my socks and not even caring. I was desperate to know what day it was, and I got halfway down the block, stumbling and staring and probably terrifying the shit out of the other pedestrians before I thought to check the phone in my pocket for the date. December 11th. Time had passed. It had been 5 days since Clarence and I stepped through that mirror smeared with my blood and into Kainos, which meant that everything I remembered had actually happened. My world really had ended, and now I was alive again in some pathetic imitation place where everything I cared about was gone. I returned to the building slower than I'd run away. I didn't bother to go check the apartment where the Amazons had been. I was pretty sure the cleanup crew from heaven had scrubbed away all forensic traces. It was probably even rented again. Heaven is thorough. I found my most recent gun, a Glock 17, stashed in my sock drawer, along with several of my favorite knives. Like I said, thorough. They could do everything except put my heart back in my chest. I got on the phone and called the office. Alice answered. "It's me, Bobby," I said. "Oh," said Alice. "Hurrah." Everything back to normal. Except it wasn't, and it never would be. "What's my current status?" "Don't worry, Dollar. I'm happy to drop everything just to answer a question that you should already know the answer to." I heard a wrapper crackle and the sound of Alice eating something crunchy while she searched the official database, or pretended to. "You're currently on compassionate leave, whatever that means." I want to talk to Temuel." "So go talk to him." "I want him to call me. Give him a message from me. Tell him that. I live to serve, Master." Crunch, crunch. "Done. Any other ways you want to annoy me?" I couldn't think of any just then, so I hung up. It was interesting to discover that I could have my insides torn out and still keep functioning as if I actually cared about living. While I waited to hear from Temuel, I called Clarence just to see what the kid had to say. Ominously, his outgoing message after a few formalities continued, "And if this is Bobby, please let me know when I can call you. We really need to talk." I didn't leave a message, but I checked my own voicemail. Sure enough, the kid had left several over the last couple of days, all variations on a theme of "call me," but I just didn't want to. Clarence had come through the disaster with flying colors, and I was pretty sure he was missing Sam just like I was, but I couldn't bear the thought of one of his optimistic chats right then. I'd talk to him later, if I went on living. While the mule continued not to return my call, I wandered around the apartment like a depressed robot, checking things out. Heaven's cleaners had been hard at work. The paint was new, the carpet was new. Hard to get out those squashed swastikid stains, I guess. And there was even food in the refrigerator, although it was laughably unready to eat. Somebody had badly misread my personnel file if they thought I was going to make a stir fry from scratch. However, some brilliant soul had also left an unopened bottle of vodka in the freezer. Good stuff, too. So, after another hour or so of waiting for a call from my archangelic supervisor and trying to find some music in my collection that didn't make me feel like I wanted to bash my head against the wall, even Kind of Blue made me jumpy, which should tell you something, I gave up and opened the bottle. My kind superiors had offered me a first-class ticket to oblivion, and the only alternative I could see was to stay sober and sit around thinking about Kaz and about Sam and about the big empty that had once been my afterlife. I decided it would be rude of me not to accept Heaven's invitation. A day later, give or take a few hours, after a long drunk and a series of nightmares so bad I'm not even going to talk about them, I was back on Planet Apartment. A bit hungover, but more or less sober again, and in need of something to do to avoid going seriously, permanently crazy. It wasn't like the heartache I'd had the first 2 times Kaz had been snatched away from me. I didn't have the strength for that, I guess. Maybe I had finally accepted the fact that the universe hated me. I felt like I was in a car with the fuel tank almost empty, the engine sputtering, still moving, but pretty soon all the momentum would be gone, and I'd coast to a halt in the middle of big, big nowhere. Until that happened, though, I couldn't think of anything else to do but keep rolling forward, even though it was all but pointless. There were still some things I didn't understand, and I figured I might as well satisfy that curiosity while I still had a little strength. I called the kid and told him to meet me at the compasses, hoping he'd have a few answers. I still didn't know why I was even alive and free instead of banged up in Heaven's equivalent of a supermax detention facility. Our bosses usually don't like loose ends, and I was about as loose as they came. To my shock and horror, I discovered that although everything else had been fixed up for me and returned to normal, as if such a thing was even possible. When I checked this parking spot from my apartment, I found the same horrible yellow thing I'd been driving, Temuel's taxicab. Apparently, the universe was still having a few laughs at my expense. Just looking at it depressed me, so I decided to walk. Clarence was waiting when I got there. Quite a few regulars were around as well, and it might have been my imagination, but it seemed like they were all trying not to make it obvious that they were watching me with keen interest. The only person who acted normally was Chico the bartender, who grunted in recognition, slid me a vodka tonic, then went back to cleaning glasses with a bar towel. "I'm really glad you called me," Clarence began, but I held up my hand. "Just a second." I downed half the drink. "Okay, better. You were saying." He gave me a look that had a little too much of Sam in it, except more disapproving. "You don't need to do that, Bobby." "What, drink? Fuck, I don't. Look, just tell me what you know and don't slather it with happy sauce." I lowered my voice. "Is Anaita really gone? Dead?" "Not dead, but definitely in heavenly custody. They froze her in some big blue block of, I don't know what. Then they took her away. I've heard she's already been tried and convicted." "What? Tried? You mean they had a trial already? The biggest one in centuries? Was it public? In heaven?" Clarence snorted. Some of my cynicism appeared to have rubbed off on him. "No, but everyone knows." I looked around the bar, where everyone knew lots of things that I probably didn't know. They looked like that didn't bother them, but it sure bothered me. "What about the mule? Why won't he call me?" Clarence shrugged. "Can't say. I haven't heard anything official about him, and I haven't seen him either, but he's still in charge of the San Jude departments as far as I can tell." "Shit. They're just going to sweep the whole Anaita thing under the rug, I bet. Did you make a report?" "Report?" His smile was not a happy one. "I've been grilled by every fixer on Heaven's payroll, I think. They wanted to know everything. Everything." "Shit. And shit. What did you tell them? Did you tell them?" I looked around. Nobody was paying attention except Monica's friend, Teddy Nebraska, who, as usual of late, was looking at me like he wanted to say something. I didn't particularly want to be said something to, so I looked away. "Did you tell them about Kaz?" "No." He frowned. "And they didn't ask. I don't know why. They didn't ask about your trip to HE double hockey sticks either. But they wanted to know everything about your conflict. I think that was their word. Your conflict with Anaita." I stared at him. The thing with Clarence, I could never tell if he said things like HE double hockey sticks to be ironic or if he really was some reincarnated youth minister. "Okay, let me try another one. Why the hell am I free? Why did the cleaning crew go to all the trouble of redoing my apartment and even filling the fridge with fresh crap I'll never eat?" "I don't know, Bobby, but I think it's out of our hands now. We just have to wait and see what heaven decides." "Waiting," I said. I hate that. But Teddy Nebraska had apparently decided that he hated waiting too, and now he was finally making his big move. Clarence and I watched him walk over to our table. The kid stood up. "I'm going to go get myself another iced tea." "Hi, Bobby," Nebraska said. "Can I talk to you for a moment?" I was torn between wondering why Clarence would walk all the way across the room for a drink containing no alcohol, and wondering what the hell Nebraska wanted from me. I didn't know him well, but of course I'd seen him a lot recently with Monica. He dressed well, but with that faintly overdone look that suggested not too many decades back he would have been wearing a white Panama suit and a straw hat. "Yeah," I said. "Sure. Sit down." "Thanks." He slid into the booth and then just sat there. I wondered if he too, like Walter Sanders, had been approached by one of our superiors about me and had only now worked up the courage to tell me when it was way too late to make any difference. "What can I do for you?" I asked at last. "Well, I've always admired you, Bobby." "Please. Today of all days, that kind of shit just makes my head hurt. I'm sure you're a nice guy, Nebraska. Me, not so much. So please, just get on with it." He took a breath. "I don't know if you know, but I've been seeing Monica Nahaberoff." "Yeah, I know." If he thought this was the complaints department, I might have to pop him one in the mustache. So I just wanted to make sure that was all right with you." I stared at him. I honestly thought for a moment he was putting me on. "Let me get this straight. You're asking me if it's all right for you to date Monica?" "I guess so. Yes." I couldn't help it. I laughed. First time since the snow and ash and the end of the world. "You're joking, right? You and Monica set this up as a prank?" I pretended to look around for cameras. Instead of being relieved or pleased, Nebraska seemed worried. "Does that mean it's okay? You're serious? You want my permission? Did you tell Monica you were going to do this?" "She thinks I'm crazy," he admitted. "But I didn't want you to think we were sneaking around behind your back. Everybody knows things have been tough for you lately." At another time, I would have bent one of his fingers until he told me all the things that everybody knew. But at this point, my shit was so muddled up, I didn't even care. "Look, Ted, Monica is a wonderful person. Well, she's a wonderful angel. I'm not sure how good any of us are at person. But she can make up her own mind, and she can see whoever she wants. Neither of us ever had a claim on each other. Frankly, she deserved better than me anyway. If you're the better, more power to you both." He looked as if a weight had been lifted. "So we have your blessing?" I nearly said something mean. It was just so silly. I even looked around to see if Monica was watching, enjoying the whole stupid conversation, but the Compasses was pretty much stag right then, just a bunch of the boys in various states of looseness. Daytime tends to be guys only, not because women aren't welcome, but because most females have the sense not to spend the sunshine hours in a saloon. And as I looked around and realized I was really back, maybe not the same, but back on my home turf, a tiny bit of hopelessness lifted off me. Not enough, mind you. I still couldn't imagine living much beyond the next day without Kaz and Sam. I still couldn't believe there was anything on this gray planet to keep me here. But at least I could see a little farther through the darkness than when I came in. "You want my blessing? Then you have it. Monica's one of the best. If she sees something in you that she likes, I'm willing to believe you're a good one too. Be kind to her, Nebraska. Be kind to each other." I lifted my hand. "God loves you." I wasn't completely sure God loved anyone, to tell the truth, but at that moment, for some reason, I was willing to accept the uncertainty. The rest of my visit to the Compasses was spent getting what Clarence had said confirmed by pretty much everyone else. Anaita's fall was the talk of the angelic confraternity. It was known that the kid and I had been involved, and the fact that we were both walking around free suggested that the earlier bad things they'd heard about me had just been ugly rumors. I wasn't quite so certain myself. I had confessed a whole lot of bad stuff to the heavenly inquisitor Pethiel Sa, and things like that didn't just disappear. Heaven is forever, and that means the heavenly statute of limitations is at least that long. But at the moment, I was free. There was no arguing with that. I was free and I was alive, and someone had painted my apartment. If I was going to find out what it all meant, it seemed I would have to stay alive a bit longer. I had already thought of an errand I wanted to run, and a few other matters had been nagging at me as well, although I hadn't been sober enough to hear them very clearly. Still, despite having at least one more day left on my personal calendar, I turned down Clarence's offer of a ride and walked home. I also picked up another bottle of vodka on the way. These earthly angel bodies are sturdy. You have to pour a lot of alcohol in them to shut down the kind of things I wanted to shut down, to silence the guilty, angry, lonely thoughts long enough to sleep. I'm really not an alcoholic angel. I'm a self-medicating angel. I swear there's a difference, even if I couldn't quite put my finger on it just this moment. Chapter 47, Pointed Questions. The old Bobby would have lain around a few days and then would have sobered up and started knocking shit over, trying to make something happen and get some answers. Because there were a lot of things that still needed answering. Why wasn't anyone in power talking to me? What about my trial? Was I still all but convicted of treason against the highest? My heavenly superiors had to know about Kaz and Eligor and hell, because I'd spilled my guts to, I think it's Pathiel Saw, but maybe Pathiel Saw. Anyway, that person. Because I'd spilled my guts when they had me in custody. Not to mention all the bigger questions, like what Anaita had meant when she said should have killed me even before I was an angel. And that vision I'd experienced when she was brainwashing me. Vision, memory, whatever it was, still made my mind itch. It had felt so real, realer than real, if you get me. Was it a glimpse of my before-death past? Questions and more questions as far as I could see, without the smallest hint of an answer. Now I knew how my friend George the Pig Man must feel, shouldered deep in shit and pretending it was normal life. Hello, sweetie. Yes, you're a good girl. It's okay. Yes. Say hello to all the nice people. Hello, nice people. Yes. Like I said, the old Bobby would have been making trouble all over town trying to figure it out, but this time I couldn't get started. Despite the surge of vitality that had sent me out to the compasses, I just didn't care enough. I felt like a party balloon a few days past the best use date. Nobody was holding my string anymore, but instead of flying, I was sort of bumping along about halfway between floor and ceiling, unable to reach either the top or the bottom, drifting and doomed. It's not like I didn't think about ending it all. I mean, really, what did I have left? Kaz gone, snatched from me again. Sam gone too, at least the Sam I knew and loved, probably forever. My bosses, still with the guillotine blade hanging over my neck and not bothering to tell me whether I should get up and get on with things or just lie there and wait for the drum roll to finish and the blade to drop. But it wasn't that easy anyway. As you've already seen, death and angels don't always go together. Our fates are not in our own hands. The chances were good that no matter what I did to myself, even if I went to the Eferet and insisted on making a full public confession of every rule I'd broken, I might only be recycled into another body, this time with obedience reflexes more in line with current workplace standards. A bleating Bobby sheep who didn't ask questions. But what if they recycled me and I still remembered what it was like to be discontented in the pastures of the Lord and couldn't do anything about it? So the next couple of days dragged past, and I let them drag me along. Christmas, once only a vague nightmare, crept closer and closer like a determined tinsel-covered zombie. I drifted, bounced, drank, slept, and watched television with the sound off. Clarence tried several times to get me to come out, but I declined. I knew he'd try to talk me into something, and right now I couldn't handle something. I was having enough trouble with nothing. Okay, here's the truth, embarrassing as it might be. When my archangel finally contacted me, I was walking back from Oyster Bill's and a late breakfast, and I was actually trying to figure out whether I should take the toast crumbs wrapped in a napkin in my pocket and feed them to the pigeons in Beaker Square, or go home and watch Maury. I had decided on the pigeons because I figured at least somebody should benefit from my shitty life, even if it was flying rats, when I noticed a small Middle Eastern-looking man walking beside me. It wasn't exactly the same body I'd seen before, but I was beginning to recognize the mule's earth body language, if you know what I mean. Bobby? Temule. I kept walking. Beaker Square wasn't too crowded on a chilly December pre-noon. Don't be angry, Bobby. Angry? Me? Because you handed me over to my bosses to be put on trial? You know that wasn't my choice. I know you know that. Oh, really? Funny, because I wouldn't say I know anything like that. I picked the first bench that didn't have spilled milkshake congealing on it and sat down. Temule sat down beside me. As I unfolded the napkin full of crumbs, a particularly bold pigeon dove down to get first choice. Startled, I nearly took its head off. I still hadn't entirely recovered from being in hell, even months later. I did not like things jumping at me without warning. If you truly thought I sold you out, then why didn't you tell them about me? Temule asked. He looked exactly like the kind of harmless old guy, maybe a professor of Semitic languages that you'd see sitting on a bench like this. I wasn't sure where I fit in, although the pigeons appreciated me for about 30 seconds until the crumbs were gone. I did. I told Pethiel Sa about you. I told that sweet-talking witch everything. That's not what I meant. You couldn't help that. But you didn't mention me to the Ephers when you were on trial. Nobody asked me. Which was only partly true, of course. Even during the trial, I began to figure out something more complicated than mere treachery was going on with Temule. In fact, in a few ways, he seemed to have taken risks to protect my secrets. Kaz's apartment still seemed unknown to the authorities, for one thing. I dropped by the place one day in a drunken fog and had a look around, but it had been too painful to stay more than a few minutes. Still, I'd found no sign that heaven had been there. Okay, I said, you did a few things to make sure I had something to come back to. Did you work something special with the cab, too? Because it doesn't seem to show up on the heavenly radar for some reason, so they have to follow me the old-fashioned way. I'm guessing that was something you arranged. Temule nodded, almost shyly. I was wondering if you'd noticed. Yeah, I noticed. Thanks. But strangely, I wasn't feeling very grateful at that exact moment. So, what do you want from me now? It's all over, right? Anaita got taken down, and you seem to be free and clear, but I'm still waiting to see if I get the Inquisition treatment. Did you want to know if I'd go on keeping my mouth shut about you? I tried to see the answer in his face, but Temule was giving nothing away. I guess I'll do my best. But I spilled it all to the angel of conciliation already, so somebody in heaven knows more than enough about both of us to drop us into the pit for a term of forever to longer. It's only a question of why they haven't used any of it yet. In other words, if you're worried about keeping your wings, I'm not your biggest concern. No, that's not why I'm here. The archangel seemed a bit frustrated. I can't talk about any of it yet, but I wanted you to know that I haven't forgotten about you. You have no idea how complicated things are right now, how delicate. He patted my hand. It felt just like being patted by a human being. And that's all? Good luck, Bobby. I'd like to help you, but it's complicated. Okay, leave me out of it for just a minute. What about Kainos and all the human souls living there? Did they just get disappeared? And my girlfriend along with them, I almost said, but even now my habit of secrecy was strong.
What about Sam Riley and the other Magians who were betrayed by Anaita? Do they just stay dead, or do they get recycled into something more manageable? Angels who don't ask questions. It's not that simple. You know, I've heard that before, and it's not really what you expect from friends. I've never been your friend. He didn't bother to make a reassuring face, but I must admit he at least looked sad. Heaven, hell, earth, it's all too complicated for anything as simple as friendship, Bobby. But I've tried to do right by you, and I'll keep trying. So this whole visit was to tell me what? Not to give up? I'm not worried about you giving up. I'm more worried about you pushing things too far when the time isn't right. What the split-level Hades does that mean? Time isn't right? I just brought down an angel who was running the biggest anti-heaven scam since Satan tried to invent upward mobility. Funny you should mention that, he said, and for a moment I thought I might actually hear something useful. Then Temuel stood, ran a hand over his balding head, adjusted his glasses, and gave me another one of his wise old uncle smiles. I was really getting sick of that particular facial expression. I have to go. I couldn't even think of anything cutting to say. Like I said, half helium, half regular old air dragging my string along the floor. I watched him walk away across the park. A couple of pigeons too stupid to know the crumbs were gone kept me company until I finally got up and headed off in the opposite direction. If it had been a day like the last few, I would have gone back home and saluted the passing of noon with a drink or two. But somewhere in my subconscious, I'd been waiting for Temuel to check in, one way or another, and now that he had, and had given me a lot of nothing, I couldn't turn off my unhappy thoughts. I wandered up and down the waterfront and the dark, narrow blocks around it. The Pioneer District. And considered the differences between disappearing into a bottle and just doing the job properly by stepping off a dock and into the cold green waters of the bay. For a while, I listened to a guy with a guitar playing an okay version of an old Slim Harpo song that people only remembered because the Stones recorded it. The guy wasn't that good, but he wasn't that bad either. Eventually, the proprietor of the nearest souvenir shop came out and gave him $5 to play somewhere else, a win-win for everyone. Strangely, it was a message from Orban that pulled me away from the hypnotic green waters of the bay and my empty, uncaring mood. He called to say that he'd finished the sale on the Matador machine to the guy in the Pacific Northwest, and that he had the rest of my money. So, it was official. My car was gone. I loved that car. Had spent hours with it, searching for replacement trim and the right paint and upholstery, shoveling money into the pockets of mechanics to make it run like new. And now it was leaving my life. A lot of that going on. But where losing the Matador should have felt like a death, the actual news was more like a pinch, so much less than I'd expected that it hardly registered. Did I no longer give a damn about anything, or had my priorities changed? Because as I walked along Parade through clusters of chilly tourists, I found I did still care about some things. I cared very much. Kaz had called me a wounded romantic, a self-destructive optimist, but I wasn't feeling either very romantic or optimistic. Still, there's a part of me that needs to get knocked down to remind myself of why I get up, and that part seemed to be awakening again. Heaven wasn't going to tell me anything. Temuel couldn't tell me anything, or at least that's what he wanted me to believe. Sam was gone. Kaz was gone. And even the Ephers, who should have been grilling me like a junior burger, didn't seem to give a damn. But I still gave a damn. I still needed to know what had happened to me, and why. I walked back to my place, climbed into that ugly-ass taxi, then headed west, over the hills and toward the ocean. The surf was midwinter impressive below the one-time nunnery. Half a dozen women in gray were dutifully hanging washing on a line outside the cabins down below the house, although I couldn't imagine that bedclothes and nuns' habits were going to dry very fast in the biting breeze off the Pacific. One of the nuns opened the front door and tried to tell me that Gustavus wasn't at home. I didn't care whether he was or wasn't, to be honest, because I wasn't going to leave that easily, and I didn't really have anywhere else to go. I said I'd wait, and made my way down the hallway toward the big room, which really upset Sister Kremlin or Sister Igor or whichever one it was, but she was apparently too Christian to get into a wrestling match with me. I had scarcely found myself a place to sit in the midst of all those tables littered with books and papers when Gustavus appeared through a side door, tying the rope on his weird Buddhist warrior pajamas like I'd got him out of the bath. I could see the nun hovering in the doorway behind him. She was now holding a broom, but Gustavus apparently didn't think he'd need her help quelling the invasion. He closed the door firmly but gently behind him. "Thought you weren't here," I said. "Nice of you to drop by, Mr. Dollar. Perhaps next time you could call first." "Sorry. Old habit of mine. People who don't want to see me find it easier to avoid me when I let them know I'm coming." "Perhaps, but I wasn't trying to avoid you." "Didn't say you were. You still interested in swapping information?" He looked me over, then went to get 2 glasses from a tray and poured water into both of them. "Some refreshment?" "Sure. You had the glasses ready. Were you expecting someone? Like me?" He gave me a look that was a little amused, a little irritated. "Why would I be expecting you?" "Never mind. I'm here because I want to know more about a particular angel." I checked my notes. "Yep, that's all. Just some info on one little angel. I'll take hard evidence, interesting stories, completely dubious scuttlebutt, you name it." "Oh, and what do I get in return, Mr. Dollar?" "The inside information on how a major angel fell. You've heard about Anaita?" "I confess that I have. In fact, even if I hadn't, the fact that you're still around suggested she was out of the picture." "Yeah. Well, I was there when she was taken down, and it's an interesting story. What do you say? You game to trade?" He drank his water, eyeing me over the rim of his glass. "And what angel is it you want to know about? Because that might make a difference. One of the Ephors in charge of your case? Someone involved in the Magian movement? One of Anaita's dupes?" "No. I want you to tell me all about an archangel called Samkiel. I'm betting that name won't mean anything to you, but trust me, you've heard it." Gustavus recognized it too because he looked surprised. "Really?" He shook his head as though I'd offered to hawk him a priceless antique for the price of a cheap bottle of wine. "Very well. Let's talk." And so I told him about the snow and ash on Kainos, all the way up to the last moments when the angels came and my best friend died in my arms. I told him everything, even the things I'd rather have forgotten. When I didn't tell him enough, Gustavus asked questions, good questions, hard questions that I didn't always have the answers to myself. It really made me wonder about him, because it might just have been the hunger for truth of a true historian, but there were times when it seemed to go deeper than that. When I was done, he answered my questions, and you'll hear about those answers soon enough. Altogether, it made for a fascinating afternoon, and for a long time it was just the two of us, one speaking while the other one listened. The ocean beat against the shore like a lover at a locked door, and the wind plucked at the shingles and rattled the windows. By the time we finished, it was early evening. I stood up, stretched, then fumbled in my pocket for my car keys. "Oh, one last thing." "Oh, sorry, that's Bobby." "One last thing," I said. Just a minor question, not a trade. You don't have to answer. He put his glass down and turned from the window. He, as usual, had stood during the entire time I was with him. What might that be? I was just wondering whether you might be someone else. I beg your pardon? I know, it sounds strange, but I couldn't help thinking that if someone wanted to slip me information, even manipulate me a bit here and there, it would be nice if they had a cover as someone who knows a lot about heaven, while still being an outsider. Someone like you. Ah, and in this solipsistic view of things, Mr. Dollar, Bobby, who would I be? Don't know. That's why I'm asking. One of the Ephors? My boss, Temuel? Some other angel I don't know? Heck, maybe not even an angel. There have to be lots of folks from hell playing the long game up here who wouldn't mind the combination of getting inside information and making trouble for heaven. His smile looked genuine, if a bit indulgent. Should I remind you that you came looking for me, not the other way around? Absolutely. Can't argue with that. And even if this conspiracy theory were true, although it most definitely is not, you know very well that such a mysterious double-agent version of Carl Gustavus would have to deny everything anyway. So the question is a bit pointless, isn't it? I guess so. I got up. Thanks for the briefing on Samkiel. I have a feeling I may find that very useful. Gustavus didn't walk me out. The nun who'd let me in hours ago was still clutching the broom as I went past on my way to the door, but at least she didn't take a swipe at me. I had a lot to mull over on my way back through the hills. I put on Sonny Rollins's Blue 7, good thinking music, and watched the trees swaying in what looked like the winds before a storm. The sky was dark. So were my thoughts. I parked my gaudy yellow ride in the Tierra Green garage and headed for the stairs. I had decided to call Clarence because I thought I'd better share some of this with somebody, and he was about the only person left who knew enough of the story to understand. Not to mention that he'd handed me a major piece of it himself. But just as the phone screen lit up and I started to put in numbers, something punched me in the back hard, knocking the wind out of me. I staggered, and it was harder to turn around than it should have been. I got myself swiveled just in time to see the pale, staring face of one of Baldur von Reinmann's minions, Timon, the dark-haired one. His eyes were wide with an almost sexual excitement, and I could see sweat beaded all over his face in the pale light of the garage's overhead light. He had a long, bloody knife in his hand, an SS dagger. "The fuck!" I said. Then he stabbed me again, this time in the belly. He grabbed me with his free arm so he could plunge the knife in several more times. My knees buckled, and he let go of me. "You killed him!" The words tumbled crookedly out of his mouth. "The most beautiful man, our leader. He could have been one of the world's masters." Timon's dark hair hung in his face. He looked way too emo for a genuine murderer. "You ruined it." "No," I said, bubbling blood. "You ruined it." I was on my hands and knees, drizzling blood, trying to find a way not to shriek at the pain that had set the whole of my torso on fire, front and back. I was talking to distract him, but it felt like I was belching out fire and broken glass. I grabbed his legs with my hands and began to drag myself upright. He tried to pull away, but somehow it didn't occur to him to stab me again. "Dumbass," I grunted through clenched teeth. "You could have been a camp counselor, or a deadhead, or a fucking comic book fan. Something decent." And there it was, tucked in his belt like a birthday surprise for me. My own sofa gun, the Smith & Wesson .38 that he'd stolen at the museum. "But you had to hook up with a bunch of miserable, racist, Nazi shits. I did my best to punch him so hard in the nuts that he'd die, but I was pretty weak and only gave him a mild thump. As he stumbled back, though, I managed to hang on to the butt of the revolver. It took him a second to realize what I was pointing at him. "I bet you wish you'd taken up golf," I said as his eyes grew wide, "or collecting stamps." Then I emptied the revolver into the middle of him. Like a good little fascist, he'd cleaned and reloaded it, so he got all 5 rounds. I don't think the last 2 or 3 were necessary, but by that point I couldn't actually see anything, and even the healthy crack of the .38 air weight sounded like the tap of a distant hammer. I died pretty quickly after that. And I think this was longer than I thought it would be, and I think I still have quite a few pages left. Yes, I think I do. I have 3 whole chapters. So I'm going to finish those next week and then start the new one. Okay, oops, no, I got to go back. And then start whatever I'm going to read next. That's what I mean by the new one. I don't just have a specific, well, I do have a thing in mind, but I'll tell you about it when I decide. So anyway, let me just quickly throw that on there. I honestly thought we'd be finished tonight, no problem, but I can see now that it'd be another half an hour. And I don't really want to do that right now because my face hurts. I know, it's only fair. It's been hurting everybody else for a long time, but yeah, no, I want to go put some Bactine on it, maybe some ice. So, when I see others have shown up, including Chris Van Dahl. Chris, thank you so much for the book. I'll send you a message back to talk to you more about it in detail. But for now, I'm just checking out and checking in with everybody. So I see also Becca. I don't remember if I said hello to Becca Werlin or Tim Speckens. But if I didn't, I'm saying it now. So that's where I'm going to wrap it up for tonight. And I thank you for your patience, and I thank you for your presence. I always enjoy doing this. I will see you guys next week, again, barring fire, flood, or vermicious canids. And I hope you will join me while we finish off Bobby Dollar and then start something new. Yeah, that's about it. So take good care of yourselves. Step number 1, take care of your loved ones. Keep an eye on the people that you care about, but also keep an eye open for people who might need some help, who are around you, but that may not be within your circle of immediate attention. Because it's tough times right now for a lot of people. And even just a little moral support can go a long way. So keep your eyes open. Until then, peace. Thank you for joining me. Lovely to have you. I will see you very soon, almost certainly next week. And sayonara.